showcasing beloved favorites and forgotten gems. This is The Archive with Jason Drury on the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
From Ramsgate in Kent, England, it's a very warm welcome once again to the Cinematic Sound Radio Network's Archive Show. I'm your host, Jason Drury, thanking you very much once again for joining us. Before we continue, as always, it's a big hello to our listeners at cinematicsound.net. And wherever you get great podcasts that feature this show, it's great to have you join us. And if you like what you hear, God knows why, it would be wonderful if you could give us a 5-star rating and a review on your favourite podcatcher. Even more so on iTunes, as it really helps get the show noticed and introduces new listeners to find the programme. And, of course, the Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast Network itself. We also, as you know, have a merch store where you can buy an archive logo t-shirt or any other of your favourite Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast Network programs, as well as hundreds of other items, including some limited edition apparel. To see the swag on offer, as always, go to TeePublic. The link is strategically placed on the webpage. And also, as you may know, we have a Patreon account. Go to patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio, where you can support the station for as low an amount as $1 or £1. But if you invest more, you can obtain some very interesting and exciting rewards, including involvement, if you desire, on the flagship request show, which premiered recently, and very enjoyable it was to listen to. Now, this is a special one-off edition of the archive. With the recent release, finally, of the latest James Bond film, and I'm sure, like me, you are thinking, come on, Bond, where the hell are you? I have created a show, music from film and TV shows, which were inspired by the exploits of 007, and also have an actual link to the secret agent himself. We started the show by playing the cue The Ace Tomato, or Tomato, let's call the whole thing off. The Ace Tomato Company from the 1985 spy comedy Spies Like Us, directed by John Landis and starring Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, with music composed and conducted by Elmer Bernstein and performed by the Grauke Symphony Orchestra of Munich. Now, the Ace Tomato, or Ace Tomato Company of this film, is the equivalent of James Bond's cover for MI6, Universal Exports. Next up is music from a film based on a novel which was written as an intentional spoof of the James Bond novels. The EIGER Sanction, the 1975 action thriller directed and starring Clint Eastwood, based on the 1972 novel of the same name by Trevelyan, aka Rodney William Whitaker. The film was about an art history professor, mountain climber and former assassin, once employed by a secret United States government agency, who is blackmailed into returning to his deadly profession to do one more sanction, a euphemism for killing. He agrees to join an international climbing team in Switzerland, planning an ascent on the Eiger North Face, to complete a second sanction to avenge the murder of an old friend. The film co-starred George Kennedy, Vonetta McGee, and Jack Cassidy. Now, the EIGER Sanction's original score was provided by John Williams. This would be the 5th of 11 movies Williams would score for Universal in the 70s, which included Dracula, Hitchcock's final film, Family Plot, and a little film from a director called Steven Spielberg that nobody's heard of anymore called Jaws. The score is a fine example of a typical Williams score of the period. Orchestral, jazz elements, tonal, and the tonal soundscapes, and a memorable theme. In this case, Williams used his classical side with hints of Baroque, adding a modern spin with keyboards, synth, and electric harpsichord. One of the standout cues of the score does not even appear in the film. The car chase, aka 50 Miles of Desert, is a highly dramatic piece for piano, percussion, and brass, which builds up to a very exciting climax. The dangerous and ultimately deadly climb up the Eiger makes up the final half hour of the film, with Williams expertly edging up the tension and suspense at every opportunity in a way that only a master of the disaster movie genre would. After 45 years since the film's release, Williams' complete score has finally been let loose on the film music community with a 2-disc set from Intrada Records. The score's reputation has been eclipsed by the success of Williams' next project, Jaws. But the score itself isn't equal to it in terms of its ingenuity, its excitement, and, of course, its listenability. So here now is music from the 1975 action thriller The EIGER Sanction, the original score composed and conducted by John Williams. That was music from the 1975 action thriller The EIGER Sanction, with original score composed and conducted by John Williams. The original soundtrack recording was recently released as a new 2-disc set by Intrada Records.
This is The Archive with Jason Drury on the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
Welcome back to the show. Next up is music from a classic 1960s spy series which really does have a connection to James Bond, and in particular its author Ian Fleming. The Man from U.N.C.L.E, produced by MGM and first broadcast on NBC in the US and the BBC in the UK. The series premiered on September 22nd, 1964, completing its run on January 15th, 1968. The programme led the spy fiction craze on television, and by 1966 there were nearly a dozen imitators. Several episodes were successfully released in theatres as B-movies or double features. There was also a spin-off series, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E, novels and comic book series, and merchandise. A bit like this show, really. A film based on the series, directed by Guy Ritchie, was also made in 2015, which starred Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer. The series centred on a two-man troubleshooting team working for the multinational secret intelligence agency U.N.C.L.E, the United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. The series starred Robert Vaughn as Napoleon Solo, with his Russian partner Ilya Kuryakin, played by David McCallum. Leo G. Carroll played Alexander Waverley, their British chief of the organisation. U.N.C.L.'s primary adversary was an organisation known as Thrush. Sounds a bit itchy, that really. The technical hierarchy for the removal of undesirables and subjugation of humanity. Easy for you to say. Thrush's aim was to conquer the world, as you do, and to create an ointment. Thrush was considered so dangerous an organisation that even the governments who were ideologically opposed to each other, such as the United States and the Soviet Union, had cooperated in forming and operating the U.N.C.L.E organisation, and each episode had an acknowledgement to U.N.C.L.E in the end titles. Now, apart from being a spoof, obviously, on James Bond, the show has a genuine link to 007. Ian Fleming contributed to the show's concepts after being approached by the show's co-creator Norman Felton. According to the book The James Bond Films, Fleming proposed two characters, Napoleon Solo and April Dancer, who later appeared in the spin-off series The Girl from U.N.C.L.E, played by Stephanie Powers. Now, the theme music for the series was memorably composed by Jerry Goldsmith, but was changed slightly each season. Goldsmith provided only 3 original scores, and then was succeeded by Morton Stevens, who composed 4 scores, Walter Sheriff did 6, and then Lalo Schifrin did 2. Gerald Fried was a composer from season 2 through the beginning of season 4. Other composers used in the series were Robert Dranson, Nelson Riddle, and Richard Shores. The music reflected the show's changing seasons. Goldsmith, Stevens and Sheriff composed highly dramatic scores for the first season, which included brass, unusual time signatures, and martial rhythms, aka serious dramatic music. This all changed with season 2 when Gerald Fried and Robert Dranson opted for a more lighter approach to the scoring soundscape, featuring harpsichords and loads of bongos. Lalo Schifrin returned to the series and was given the task to rearrange the theme for a smaller ensemble from season 1 and to make it sound more hip. Goldsmith's original 5/4 signature tune became 4/4 for 2 flutes, guitar, Fender bass, drums, bongo, timpani, maracas and claves, of which Goldsmith was far from happy of the radical overhaul of his music. Now, season 1 was filmed in black and white, which I've never seen in the UK, because apparently on the BBC, if a show is shown in black and white, viewers start getting a rash. Season 2 was filmed in colour as per the rest of the series, which was all shown on the BBC and subsequent showings in other UK stations. By the 3rd season, the music, like the show itself, had become overly camp, exemplified by the use of rhythm and blues organ and a saxophone version of the theme. The fourth season made an attempt to tone down the campiness and revert to a more serious side, which was duly echoed by Richard Shaw's more sombre scores. Now, the episode score we will be featuring is the two-part season opener for Season 2, Alexander the Greater Affair, later released as the feature film One Spy Too Many. Megalomaniac businessman Alexander, played by Rip Torn, what a name, plans to imitate his namesake Alexander the Great by taking over the world. Solan Kyriakin must stop him before he manages to succeed with his meticulously planned scheme. Rip Torn. As good a name as Wolf Blitzer. Now, this would be Gerald Fried's first scoring assignment on the show, and his score more or less set the blueprint for what was to come in that season, with the tongue-in-cheek, groovy sound, which would last for most of the series' run this point onwards. His light-hearted, jazz-inflected approach won over the producers and the show's fans, with many cues from the score tracked in the later episodes. Fried's orchestrational skills were also clearly evident, with his wonderfully full sound coming from just 13 players, by utilising Goldsmith's theme to good effect during the action sequences. So, let's bring out the old bongos and give them a good bashing by hearing the score from Alexander the Greater Affair, the Season 2 opener from the classic TV spy series The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Original score composed by Gerald Fried, utilising the main theme by Jerry Goldsmith. feel bungled out after that. That was music from Alexander the Greater Affair, the Season 2 opener from the classic TV spy series The Man from U.N.C.L.E. The original score composed by Gerald Fried, utilising the main theme by Jerry Goldsmith. This suite and countless others from the series were released in 3 volumes of 2-disc sets starting in 2006 by FSM Records.
The home for beloved favourites and forgotten gems, this is The Archive with Jason Drury on the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
Welcome back to the show. Now, Jerry Goldsmith seems to be the go-to guy for spy scores in the 1960s in the States. After working on Man from U.N.C.L.E. in 1966, he scored the first of 2 films of a series that tried to be the American equivalent of 007. Our Man Flint, made in 1966, was directed by Daniel Mann, written by Hal Finberg and Ben Starr, with a story by Hal Finberg, and starred James Coburn as Master Spy. I always said Master Fly. As Master Spy Derek Flint. The main premise of the film is that a trio of mad scientists attempt to blackmail the world with a weather control machine, as you do. The sequel, entitled In Like Flint, was released the following year, with Coburn reprising his role. The film contains direct nods to James Bond in a comedic and outlandish style. Flint is initially offered a Wolver PPK and an attaché case with a concealed throwing knife, with Flint dismissing them both as crude. During the French strip club sequence, yes, there is a French strip club sequence in this film, they dare do that these days, Flint staged a mock brawl with a patron who is identified as Agent 008, a British secret agent. Flint asks his Spectre, the criminal organisation in the Bond movies, which has made a recent reappearance in the Daniel Craig films, if they were involved. To which Agent 008 replies, "It's bigger than Spectre." The actor playing the role is similar in appearance to Sean Connery. Now, being, as I said, no stranger to the spy genre, Jerry Goldsmith was a perfect choice to score Our Man Flint. There is absolutely nothing subtle about this movie, and Goldsmith's score is no exception, providing an orchestral score with clear and abundant jazz influences. Goldsmith's theme is a clear and endearing piece of 60s pop culture, with a subtle and tiny nod to Monty Norman, being described by Guitar Player magazine as a surf and samba affair, featuring a simple but effective 2-part harmony and a snazzy tritone 888, which Goldsmith works into the score in endless variations. Hope you understood that, I did not. Well, electric guitars take centre stage throughout. Clearly, the James Bond sound produced by John Barry, 4 years into its inception, is beginning to sound a little clichéic. Keyboards and percussion also have a fair outing throughout the score. Also, in my opinion, this score, composed in the mid-60s, is the embryo of that pounded rhythm that Jerry Goldsmith produced for the action material for the Rambo series. Our Man Flint and its sequel In Like Flint in 1967 are clearly films of their time. A similar thing can be said about the early Bond films with its alleged misogyny present, like the bum slapping in Goldfinger. The films are of their time. However, what hasn't changed over the years is the sheer fun and excitement Jerry Goldsmith conjured in these brace of scores, with that little hint of what was to come 20 years down the line. So here now is music from the 1966 spy comedy film Our Man Flint. The original score composed and conducted by Jerry Goldsmith. That was music from the 1966 spy comedy film Our Man Flint, with original score composed and conducted by Jerry Goldsmith. The original soundtrack recording was last released as part of the Jerry Goldsmith at 20th Century Fox box set in 2004 and paired with its sister film In Live Flint in 1998 by Varese Sarabande Records.
This is The Archive with Jason Drury on the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
Welcome back to the show. Now, in 2018, we lost one of America's finest composers, Patrick Williams, whose music for a long time never really appeared much on CD for his fans to listen to. Luckily, in recent years, this has been remedied, particularly by La La Land Records, particularly with the release of a 2-disc set of Williams' dramatic and highly jazzy music for the classic 70s TV detective series The Streets of San Francisco. As an addition on that 2-disc set, La La Land released music from the last series that Pat Williams scored for producer Quinn Martin. A Man Called Sloan, which was a secret agent adventure television series shown on NBC in the States and ITV in the UK, that ran for just 12 episodes between 1979 and 1980. A Man Called Sloan was an amalgamation of elements from spy series of the previous 15 years, including The Man from U.N.C.L.E, with music we heard earlier, Mission Impossible, and The Wild Wild West, whose music was the first thing ever heard on the Archive show way back in 2017. Now, the series starred Wild Wild West veteran Robert Conrad as Thomas R. Sloan III, a freelance spy who takes on occasional assignments for UNIT, nothing related to Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart or Doctor Who. In this case, it's a secret American intelligence operation run by the director, played by Daniel Hellery. Like all series like this, they need an organisation to fight with. In this case, it was called Cartel. Aiding Sloan's missions was Torque, Sloan's deadly right-hand man. Literally. Torque had a metallic hand with interchangeable parts, like a drill or saw blade, that often helped during the assignments. Now, Patrick Williams' music tried to give the show the bounce it needed by writing a theme, scoring the first episode, and providing a considerable amount of library music for use on future episodes. The episode in question was entitled The Seduction Squad, of which Williams scored 50 minutes in music as well as the 29 for the actual score of the episode. The episode guest stars Robert Culp as a cosmetics tycoon who uses beautiful models to lure American military officials into a brainwashing scheme that could lead to an international Holocaust. Williams' Sloan theme sports an electric guitar-given melody with a strong contemporary beat spiced up with flutes and futuristic synthesizer sounds. It is the basis of much of the score, augmented with suspense and action material, all clearly not to be taken any seriously, and has over the years become increasingly dated in its cheesiness. So let's now have a slice of musical Blue Stilton. We hear music from The Seduction Squad, an episode of the 1979-80 TV series A Man Called Sloan. The original score and theme composed and conducted by Patrick Williams. That was music from the Seduction Squad, an episode of the 1979-80 TV series A Man Called Sloan, with original score and theme composed and conducted by Patrick Williams. The original soundtrack recording of this appears at the end of the 2-disc set of music from The Streets of San Francisco, which is Volume 3 of the Quinn Martin Collection series, released by La La Land Records. And with that, Sally, we've come to the end of this SPY special of the archive on the Cinematic Sound Radio Network. I would like to say a big thank you to all our patrons we have at the moment, and also our future patrons. Their support, as well as yours, dear listener, is greatly appreciated. Also, I must thank, as always, in great awe and admiration, David Corsina for composing the archived theme music. And, of course, my good friend Eric Woods for letting me loose on this station for now nearly 5 years. We end today with music from another film franchise based, just like James Bond, on a series of best-selling novels. I present music from The Hunt for Red October, the 1990 submarine spy thriller directed by John McTiernan, produced by Max Neufeld and starring Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Scott Glenn, James L. Jones and Sam Neill. The film was an adaptation of the Tom Clancy's 1984 best-selling novel of the same name, and was the first installment of a film series with the protagonist Jack Ryan. The story is set during the late Cold War era and involves a rogue Soviet naval captain who wishes to defect to the United States with his officers and the Soviet Navy's newest and most advanced nuclear missile submarine, a fictional improvement on the Soviet ICBM-capable Typhoon-class submarine. A CIA analyst correctly deduces his motive and must prove his theory to the US Navy before a violent confrontation between the Soviet and American navies spirals out of control. The musical score for The Hunt for Red October was composed and conducted by Basil Poledouris. Poledouris was a natural choice to score Red October, as the film combined elements of a number of the composer's past projects: US-Soviet relations, Men and Machines, and The Ocean. I was also excited at work with director McTiernan for the first time. The score Poledouris came up with consisted of short, subtle cues with a mix of orchestra and electronics. What McTiernan had in mind for the score's emotional heart was from Russian sailors singing proudly their national anthem, and asked Poledouris to use an authentic Russian folk song for the main title. The composer agreed with the concept, but chose instead to create his own song, of which the thematic material of the score could be drawn from. Poledouris spent a great deal of time on the lyrics of his rousing main title, incorporating Connery's opening line for the film, "Cold and Hard," and expressing what was described as his John Milius side of machismo and pride. The score's later cues becomes more percussive and electronic based until the orchestra disappears completely. This is due more to financial constraints more than design, as after recording the large-scale orchestral and choral cues, Poledouris and his scoring team found that, due to overspends on other parts of the production, their music budget had been reduced, so they would have to use electronics only for the rest of the score. A major casualty of this was the film's end title, which was spotted and entitled New World, but was changed to an editorial medley of cues from the score, which gave us sadly an underwhelming ending to overall one of Poledouris' finest scores. What we will end the show with today is a brace of cues. The first is, in my opinion, the orchestral highlight of the score, Nuclear Scam, which utilises Poledouris' main theme. And we end the show with a big finish with a cue appropriately entitled Kaboom. Improperly entitled Kaboom. So here now is music from the 1990 submarine spy thriller The Hunt for Red October, with original score composed and conducted by Basil Poledouris. The original soundtrack recording was last released as a 2-CD set in 2013 by Intrada Records. Thank you very much again for listening. I do hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the Archive Show. And until the next time, from me, Jason Drury, is take care, stay safe, and happy listening.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cinematic Sound Radio Network. I want to thank Tim Burton for providing his voice for all the bumpers and stingers you hear throughout the show, and to David Cassina for providing Cinematic Sound Radio's intro music. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media at CinSound Radio on Twitter, at Cinematic Sound on Facebook, and from wherever you're listening to us today, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. Reviews help introduce potential new listeners to the show. While you're at it, head over to TeePublic to find yourself a Cinematic Sound Radio t-shirt and support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/Cinematic Sound Radio. And don't forget to check out Cinematic Sound Radio at cinematicsound.net.